Welcome to First State Kopites, a podcast for Delaware's Liverpool supporters and their friends.
Thanks for joining us on First State Kopites. It's episode 5 of season 4, and it's the last episode before the season officially begins. I'm Paul, and I'm joined this week by Daz, who is in Baltimore, and Haitham, who is in Chicago. Good to see you both. So the countdown's on. It's 5 days to go till we take on Fulham. What we're going to do here in part 1 is look at the final preseason friendlies. Was the Community Shield quite so friendly? Well, we can talk about that. In part 2, the season starts Friday. We'll look ahead at that, and we'll kind of check the temperature of how we're feeling about where Liverpool are and maybe thoughts about elsewhere. I'm sure somewhere in there we'll talk a bit about our thoughts about City and how ready they are. And then in the final segment, we'll do our last set of thoughts on the Women's Euros. England beat Germany in the final after extra time, and we can talk about football coming home or whatever takes our fancy. So that's this week's episode. But let's start on Saturday, July 30th, which apparently was the 56th anniversary of England winning the World Cup, i.e. the last time an English team won an international tournament. But Liverpool played at Leicester because apparently Wembley was in use, and they won 3-1. And they, from my perspective, they looked very good from all sorts of perspectives, which we want to get into now. So I'll start off with you, Daz. If I think about the performance, like overall, what were the standouts from your perspective?
I thought it was a fantastic spectacle from start to finish. I thought the substitutions actually made us look a little bit, well, I shouldn't say better, but it was nice to see a different look, because you could see that City dropped back 5 or 7 yards when Nunez came on, because they realized that he offers that threat over the top that Bobby Firmino's not really beating anyone for pace, but Nunez likes to play on the shoulder for the most part. And he's got the speed, he's got the strength and the agility to offer that. So I thought so maybe we were wrong in thinking that Klopp was going to change his system. Maybe he just changes the personnel and keeps the system and just gives people I think what he said was he wants, what was the expression that he used? You guys can help me. He was like, he wants to freshen it up. He wants to make us a bit more unpredictable.
Yeah.
Because I think that was one of the things that plagued us towards the end of last year, was teams just entrenched themselves because they knew we were going to play pretty much exactly the same type of football, and they just stymie us inside their own 18-yard box. That does not to say that they can't do that, but they're going to have to contend with someone that's bigger, stronger, and can finish with his head now, and that's a target man. So it was just nice to see it, and it's always nice to beat City. I just, as a tangent, like the fact that they didn't pick up their runners-up medals not only speaks volumes about what type of people they are, considering all their fans are like, oh, it's only the Community Shield. It's the same Community Shield that you a-holes put on part of the Formidable. Remember that?
Yes.
It's right there on the front of the bus. When you guys were up on that your parade, the Formidable was right there. So it meant something when you guys won it that season. So it's the fact that they said that it didn't mean anything was belied by the fact that they didn't get their medals, which meant it was such a moody way of saying that it absolutely meant something. Right. But I know it's a tangent. I think there was some small stuff like misplaced passes, that kind of thing. It's that you'd expect 5 games into a preseason, but by and large, I think that if you were gonna put us head to head against City, obviously we beat them 3-1. But in terms of overall performance, I think that we are, in terms of readiness, I think that we are significantly better, more ready for the season than they are. And the fact that we brought on blooded and as well as new substitutes, like it should fill those that have watched with some glee. And again, it's a Mickey Mouse trophy until you win it, as is evidenced again by the way that City viewed it.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I heard someone say was, if this had been against Crystal Palace, then I think people would have been within their rights to say, well, of course it's a friendly. I think anytime you face them, and to your point, I think they were definitely invested in winning. Why would they have been so complaining so much about Virgil punting the ball into the stands after Salah's penalty if it didn't matter?
Which also brought me great glee to watch.
I,
Such a shithouse thing to do. And he's like, what are you guys going to do?
right.
All of you.
Well, I don't know if you saw the camera angle from behind the goal. Like they swarm around the referee immediately. He does it. It's like so sad. I mean, they're so entitled. It's just embarrassing. We'll touch on them in a moment. What I really liked actually was I thought some of the Liverpool's players, including Salah and Trent, looked really fresh. I thought Salah had a really outstanding game. Apparently, he had 100% pass completion in that first half, which I think for a forward is just astonishing. So, Haitham, I'll turn to you. Don't want to lead you on Mo Salah, but there were a lot of performances that we could take heart in.
Yeah, he looks pretty fit and fresh compared to, and I'm talking about Salah, obviously.
Yeah.
Compared to the end of last season. And I actually heard some commentary about it earlier today. They were talking about the form that he's in, and the question was like, is it really good that he's at top level? I mean, obviously we've seen him the 3 or 4 matches that he's played in, and I was surprised to see him in that form, especially after seeing the pictures when he was signing, and he's by the pool. I'm like, this guy's not doing anything, but obviously he's been taking care of himself. But back to the conversation that I was referring to, and what they were saying basically is okay, yeah, he's in top form at this point, and probably his form, just like the last year, is going to carry him towards the end of the year, or right around the World Cup or whatever. But he has about a month basically to rest, not like like Trent. Will probably play for England, Verge, all of those players. So yeah, and I kind of agree with it. I'd like to see him, go in full force from the beginning. And it was great to see Trent. I totally agree with you. He was, just his passing, his crosses. There's an extra crispiness to them. And at the same time, I don't know what he's been doing, but it looks like he's buffed up a little bit too. Maybe he's trying to follow my regiment, but I'm not buffing up. I'm trying to, but it's not helping me. But yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it was a great watch. I had no expectations going in. It was, you guys had the conversation earlier about the Community Shield and what it means. I wanted to watch Liverpool play City, and did not expect it to be that big of a spectacle or that great of a game. And it was, I have nothing bad to say about the whole game. I think you mentioned like, missed passes and all that stuff. I did not see those. But yeah, I enjoyed it tremendously. Just one thing to mention about Nunez. I think, and I think you guys share this view with me. I think it's going to be something special. I mean, everything about him so far, his runs, even his headers, the way he jumps up for headers or whatever, it's just like, not all forwards can do that. And I don't know, I just sense something special with him, barring hopefully no injuries or whatever. But I think it's just going to kick on.
I am frankly a bit nervous that Sean keeps repeating what I said like 2 or 3 episodes ago about like if he kept up his numbers or he scored against his expected goals like he did in Portugal, he'd get 30 goals in the season. And Sean's conveniently forgotten the first part of that. And now he's telling everyone, and you've seen it, that I said he's going to score 30 goals this season.
Yeah, I just
ask you this: do you think Nunez? You should start Nunez on Saturday, or
No,
Probably
no.
soften them up for a couple of minutes and then put him on.
Yep. I'm sorry, Paul. Just real quickly. I don't think he should start. I don't think we need 30 goals for him. If we get 10 for him, I'll be the happiest person on the planet. I just anything past 10 goals is actually a gigantic plus, because I think we have others that can take care of Mane's goals basically. So I'm not looking for goals from him.
He's already halfway there, Haitham.
Preseason doesn't count. Doesn't.
So let's talk in the next part about kind of what happens going forward. But a couple of things I do want to touch on before we're done with this part. One is the shape we think Manchester City are in. I find it hard to rationally talk about them because Bernardo Silva and Rodri are two of the most annoying players I have ever seen in my life. And maybe it's a recency bias in that, but that I took great delight from Silva's inability to push Thiago over on the touchline, where he ended up he was the one sent sprawling by Thiago. Putting that to one side, do we think they're taking a big risk? I'll go to you, Daz, with the players they've let go and relying on someone who everyone says is going to be one of the best players in the world, and hasn't got a great fitness record.
Who are you referring to in particular?
Haaland.
Oh, look, I think Haaland will score plenty of goals for them. I just think that I'm not sure if Pep is completely ready to give up the way that he likes to play in order to fit him in. Haaland could have and probably should have slotted two against us. One was at the end when it was kind of meaningless, but when there was one in the first half where he just completely fluffs his lines.
Yeah.
That a sharper striker probably would have finished. I think he'll be a really good battering ram against the quote unquote cannon fodder towards the bottom of the league. I don't think there's going to be any problem with that per se. Who's calling him the best player in the world? I'm kind of struggling with that.
Oh, there's quite a few people are sort of saying, Haaland and Mbappe are the new generation of, they're picking up the mantle. I mean, this is a theme in a lot of the articles written about him, not just by Manchester City writers. Kind of he's a phenomenon. It's kind of a different level. He'll be up there with Mbappe fighting for Ballon d'Ors. That's the narrative.
I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I don't see that just yet. Mm-hmm. Again, that could be down the road. Having said that, I think he'll bag quite a few for City, because the way that they play and the space that they'll create for him is like he should be able to slot. Yeah. I'd put him over 20 this season. As long as he can, to your point, though, as long as he can stay healthy, because he does seem to take knocks. I don't know. It's like City were good, but it's preseason, so I'll put that. I'll table that. They didn't look like City. They weren't the City, and the Cityness wasn't quite there. And again, that's what their third or fourth preseason game, so I'll take that with a pinch of salt. But
third, I think it's the third.
Third, yeah. Well, and the fact that both managers put out probably the strongest 11s that they could with, but I don't think Pep's bench is very deep, and that's another interesting point is, to your point, like getting rid of Sterling and some of his some decent players. Zinchenko was a handy little player. I can see why he'd like to go somewhere else and probably log more minutes, but it's as thin as you are, letting him go right now, it seems kind of, to me, I would suggest that they are going to bring someone else in. They're talking, is it Cucurella from Brighton? I think they're trying to bring in.
Yeah,
they're bulking it as asking price. So I'm like, right. Really?
Well, as of today, it would appear that Chelsea have said they'll pay the 50 million
Which probably means that Barcelona will be right in behind them, offering him 51
or 45, most likely. Can we pay it weekly installments? Yeah.
I look, it's City is City, that they'll get it right, but I think we've all know that you don't have like 2 or 3 weeks to get into your stride.
Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks, you're 6 points back, and that's pretty much it. Well, barring like some sort of precipitous collapse due to injuries, like unprecedented a number of injuries like us in the COVID season. But I'm not sure they have the time to get it right.
Yeah. I do think, and I'll go to you next, Haitham, just to wrap up City. I do think there's got to be a trade-off, right? Because part of the point about Haaland that I'd make is that, you know, his stats out. I mean, his goal scoring is obviously one thing, but his first touch is not great. His passing stats aren't great from his time in Dortmund, and you kind of basically take out one of your midfield players in that system. That means everyone else has to work a lot harder, and I don't know that they've necessarily. I mean, maybe it'll all work out for them, but I think that's quite an adjustment to be one midfielder down in that system.
Yes and no. So, talking about Haaland himself, you know, he's not there. But I, you know, when it comes to like one of the greatest players of this generation, all of that stuff, or the next generation. But I think he has the tools to get there. I've watched him a lot on Bundesliga. He actually creates a lot of goals. And I think the past couple of seasons, I can't remember how many assists he has, but there are, if you look at his stats, it's not just goals, there are assists too. With regards to City, you know, I think first of all, you know, about when we talk about their form from this past match and, you know, the couple of matches before then, we know that it takes City a while to adjust anyways, you know, at the beginning of the season. So the first few weeks or whatever, I mean, they lost to Tottenham with Nuno, Espirito Sanchez, Nuno, basically, last year, their first match. So it takes them a while. We just know that. From, you know, a playing perspective, yes, not having that extra midfielder is going to be an issue, but I think they need to adjust to him too, to Haaland, because I mean, you have people like Grealish, you know, just keeping the ball and trying to, you know, just keep it over and over and over versus just cross it into the box, you know, put it up high in the sky. So there's a little bit of adjustment on both sides, but you know, I don't see why it would not work with him and the talent that they have, except especially De Bruyne. You have that guy. I mean, he's just going to put it for you on a plate to score. So yeah, I mean, they're not up to their, you know, known self, but they're going to get there. Just give them, I don't know, a couple of weeks. I don't want them to get there, obviously, but I just know it's going to happen.
Well, obviously, I've got a little bit of kind of desire for them to fail. So in some of the questions, but I do think there are some. So just so here's an example, Daz. You said, where's the stuff come from? Goal.com has a recent article called "Kylian Mbappe versus Erling Haaland: Who is the future star of football?" I think that's the sort of.
From Goal.com, that feels like one of those clickbaity puff pieces.
I think Neil Jones writes for them. Who's, you know, one of the more reliable, I think, Liverpool sources. And so one of the things it also says, though, is it's that Haaland had 10 assists last year, and he scored 41 goals in 41 appearances. It looked like. So he obviously does assist, but that's apparently he's got 59 less than Mbappe over Mbappe's career in terms of assists. So
yeah, I don't think they're at the same level at this point, but I think, you know, a couple of years from now, it could get to that, and it's going to become the new Messi versus Ronaldo.
Look, let's go down this rabbit hole for a second. I think the whole point about, look, Mbappe is an unbelievable talent, but the fact that he decided to stay at PSG, and I think that it kind of sullies, or maybe muddies is the better word for it, like what his potential could be, because you're only really playing against the best in the world in the Champions League. Although he has won a World Cup, so like you can give him that too. I'm just saying in terms of club football, I think for his own development, going to like a Real Madrid or coming to us, playing in a different league that has a higher portfolio, for the lack of a better way of putting it, would have boosted his already considerable chops, I guess. Yeah. It just feels like he opted for the kind of the simple. They gave him a ton of money. Like, man, he's like, you're gonna get paid. You're gonna get paid. Good for him. But I'm just saying, in terms of legacy, and I'm not one of those guys that's gonna just like cost out shade, because he's an unbelievable talent. But I think that for him, for his own like overall development and prestige, I think that he might have made the wrong choice staying at PSG, because it's PSG et al. When it comes to who's playing for that title. Although they were beaten a couple of seasons ago, under Pochettino. But it just feels like Haaland, I think, if he really wants to stay, like, he's done the right thing coming to the EPL. And this isn't like an EPL bias, but I think it's pretty much recognized that this is probably one of the stronger leagues in the world. And it's week in and week out, it probably has better competition. I know that there's a debate about that, but I think it's generally accepted by a lot of pundits that it's if you're really going to try and boost yourself, you want to come to the EPL.
Yeah, it feels hard to think that the best player in the world plays in the French league certainly, but he is young, and there's still a possibility that he'll end up somewhere else before long.
What he could do is now that he owns PSG, he could just like move them to London.
He could
call them LSG, London Saint-Germain.
Well, rather like Manchester City, they're actually a team that could play anywhere, right? It's the given ownership and everything else. Okay, final words on preseason. We played a second game on Sunday, yesterday, July 31st. And managed to lose 3-0 to a French team from the league we were just demeaning.
Well, there goes that whole thing.
Great timing. Well, if you saw we saw the game, right? I mean, honestly, I think they had 4 chances in the whole match, Strasbourg. I think the big story was that team could have had Kelleher, Ramsay, Tsimikas, Keita, Chamberlain, Jones, and Jota. You would have expected them to get a run out in that game. And of course, none of them were available. So we ended up with a very young-looking team. And a couple of players maybe stood out, maybe didn't do themselves any harm. One of them clearly wasn't Tyler Morton, because it was announced today he's off to Blackburn on loan. So I thought about the game, Daz.
You know what? I'll punt to Haitham because I talk too much. So I'll let him have first crack at this.
Oh, I'm gonna have to edit that out.
To be honest, I hate saying that. To be honest, anyways, I only watched the last 20 minutes because I was watching the Euros final, and totally forgot about the match, and then realized that we were playing. So it appeared that it was a period of, I don't know, 5-10 minutes where Strasbourg scored the 3 goals.
Yeah.
And they were all mistakes, which kind of took me back to the game against United. Just 3-4 mistakes and 4 goals. So it was kind of the same.
Same 17-year-old fullbacks played in both games as well.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, obviously, Mbaya, I think, is the right fullback. I think, he has a lot of potential, but he's pretty raw, especially when it comes to defense. Offensively, he's just, his crosses are not there yet, but I think his tries are pretty well. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed watching Harvey. It just, he played, I don't know, 25 minutes on Saturday.
Yeah.
And then the 90 minutes on Sunday. So it was good to see him still running, still trying to do something, still trying to score. And then, I think Daz, you made a comment about Phillips. It was good to watch him, trying to beat the soul out of a couple of players. So yeah, I mean, it's a preseason match, but I think it was good for the kids to just trying to impress the coach. Other than Tyler, because he kept talking about it in his interview about him trying to impress the coach, and he's gone today.
Well, temporarily maybe, but
Yeah, I mean, for the season.
Couple things to pick up on as the Kometio injury. Kometio, what am I talking about? Konate injury. I was reading a piece about Bajcetic, and one of the comments was, "Why do we hype all these players? Because Kometio was going to be the next big thing, and we haven't seen him for years." So anyway, Bajcetic was the other reference I was going to make, along with the Konate injury.
Well, I think that we have a lot of recency bias, right? We have a lot of players that show real sparks of coming to life, and then they just disappear, and we forget about them. Like, oh, well, what about that guy? And what about this guy? Like, it's an incredibly small percentage of young players that make it into Liverpool's first team. Yeah. And I love watching them play. I'm admittedly, if I had access to more time, I'd probably watch more of the youth games just to see what they look like in their own quote unquote milieu. Because Curtis, you can see the way that, like, and I'll just transition to Curtis for a second, because the way that he used to play was with more reckless abandon. He was the fox in the box kind of guy. He was given more license to do the stuff that we enjoy watching. Whereas now he has to be more disciplined. So he had to change his game somewhat. So I think he's lost a little bit of what made him Curtis when he was younger, but it has to happen at some point if you want to fit into a system where you're a cog in a very big machine.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's fair to cast the kids out with the bathwater, so that the baby's out with the bathwater, because a lot of these guys will go on to have really good careers potentially somewhere else. And like, oh, I remember him. Like, he played for us and he looked really good. Yeah. And there's a couple of kids out there that look like that. Bajcetic, he's covered himself in quite a bit of red glory. It's just when I've seen him play, he's intelligent with the ball, and I think he utilizes space really well. He passes it really well. He doesn't seem to be afraid. He's 18 this year. He's still got an umbilical cord attached to him as far as being a footballer. But he looks like he's been playing the game with us for years. And I hope that he gets a little bit more time. You probably won't see it. Like, it's because we do have a couple of break glass in case of emergency situations. Like, we've had kids on the bench at European matches, even on Premier League games. And so it's not outside, it's not beyond the pale to think that some of these guys might get a couple of minutes. And it was really heartening to see some of them play against like big boys. And Strasbourg brought their first team. They didn't come to mess around. They came to play. Yeah. They didn't know what Klopp was going to roll out. And for them, you're playing against Liverpool. That's always an excuse to bring your best 11.
Yeah.
And Bajcetic really impressed me. I think Chambers, I can see something, that kid Clark that we picked up. He's got something to him as well. Like, it's just nice. It's nice to see them playing like actual football against actual footballing teams at a senior level.
Yeah.
And I think that I've always say this about our youth. Like, the future is bright, whether or not they make it for us or they go somewhere else. I think we've got some footballers, and again, like, it takes sometimes years for these guys to get polished. The Wayne Rooneys of the world are they don't happen all that often. And you can point to there's some glaring examples of where it does, but again, like, you're talking about statistically, it's a really small percentage of someone that age making it and becoming something like a recognizable world star at that age. And yeah. I think we've got a couple of guys, we've given them some time, and that's one of the beauty about Klopp is, like, he's not going to shove anyone into a situation he doesn't think that they can handle.
Yeah.
And I think that he shows them the trust and respect that will probably help them not only develop, but have them run through walls for him. And it's a testament not only to Klopp, but our recruiting staff and the overall system that we run.
Yeah. Well, I do think a lot of it's about the system and the way it's changed. And I think you're right. I think 17-year-olds who end up being kind of world stars have got a lot of things going on. Like, not only do they have ability, they also need to be probably physically bigger than someone who's typically their age. But I think he probably is one to look out for, Bajcetic. The Athletic had an article on him today. Was it? I think it was Saturday. I read it today, and they had all these screenshots of him receiving the ball in midfield under pressure, and like his ability to find kind of short, quick passes and play out of presses was really impressive.
Didn't he have a long-term injury too?
He did. He missed.
Yeah.
He missed the end of the 2021-22 season. Yeah.
So I came to find out he's actually Spanish, but his father, I believe, is Serbian.
Yes. Played for Serbia.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I don't know if this is true, but somebody suggested that Thiago's father actually played on the same team as Bajcetic's father. I should have fact-checked that one, but that would be a bit wild, wouldn't it?
The age difference, what? Thiago's what, 32, 33?
So it was his his father, Thiago's father, who I think was a Brazilian international. I think they played at the piece said they played at Celta Vigo for a year at the same time. And on that stunning note, we're going to end part one. We'll be back to talk about the prospects for the weekend. Welcome back to part two of First State Kopites. We are going to talk about the weekend ahead. So on Friday, I guess the season kicks off with Palace playing Arsenal, which should be interesting, given Palace have added a few more players, and obviously Arsenal have added a few players along the way with their new collection of Man City cast-offs. We play the early game on Saturday away at Fulham. Let's start. I'll start with Haitham this time. So thinking about the Fulham game, what are your hopes and expectations for this one? It's an easy away win, isn't it?
Should be. And I look at it as, I'm trying to remember the year before they dropped back to the championship. Did they beat us at home or
Drew?
Okay. And I know they, because I remember they beat us at Anfield.
Oh, they beat us at Anfield, but I think we drew at their ground. Yeah. So
yeah, I have no worries, but if they play at a level 75% of the level on Saturday, I think they should be fine. I don't think I think we just talked about it. I think Darwin should come off the bench. But yeah, we should be. It's not going to be an easy game. It's not going to be like 6 or 7 or 5. But I think it should be a comfortable win.
Yeah. So the two games we played against them in recent years at their ground have not been comfortable at all. I know. So when I say easy win, I was really just being provocative. I do not. I don't know if they've added anybody, and I'm sure we could have done some research on this, but I do not recall seeing a single headline Fulham transfer because they had two of their best players last year were Nico Williams and Fabio Carvalho, neither of which obviously are at Fulham anymore. So what are you hoping for? Like, hoping not to be surprised by somebody that I missed. Daz?
I'd like to see us decimate, destroy, crush, smash, generally put them into an early grave, just because I remember how gutted I was when they beat us at Anfield. It took me a minute to recover from that. And it just felt massively deflating, because I think that was right when, correct me if I'm wrong, that's right when we started that quote unquote decline.
Yeah, it was in the middle, I think, of the sequence of home defeats.
Yeah, it was just.
Yeah.
I don't know much about Fulham either. I know that from what I've just seen, it's like they were in the Iberian Peninsula preseason, and they had like some successes and some like they got hammered by, was it Benfica? I think, yeah, it looks like they got beaten 5-1 by Benfica. They played Estoril, who they beat. They tied with Villarreal though. Mitrovic getting a late tying goal there, and they beat Nice. Well, I guess that Nice is in the Iberian Peninsula, but so they don't look like they're going to get steamrolled. Like it's, well, having said it, Benfica didn't smash them, but I don't know much about the game, so I can only speak to the score lines. But yeah, to your point, I think we took their best player, who I wouldn't mind seeing get some cheeky minutes towards the end of the game if we are indeed in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Klopp will do that though. I don't know. Like, does he tend to do stuff like that? Like trot out players to put the boot into their whole team.
So I think it's very likely this is a team that he'll do the 4-2-3-1. So with two midfielders and an extra attacking player. And I'm just looking here because I was like Fulham transfers. First thing that came up was a headline which said, "Frustrated Silva admits Fulham are not ready for the Premier League." Okay.
Oh, there's that.
It looks like they signed Leno from Arsenal.
Okay. Oh, they got him?
They got Pereira from Man U. Remember Pereira?
Yeah.
No.
Brazilian. Mbapo from is it Leverkusen? One of the German teams. He plays for Switzerland, I think. He's a Swiss international. Mbabo, he has like dreadlocks.
Okay.
Those are the ones that I stumbled on. But yeah, I saw the headline that says he's not ready, or they're not ready.
Well, I'm just looking at this squad, and some of the, I mean, these essentially, there's a lot of players in there who've already tried to stay in the Premier League and failed. So, well,
got a couple of US players. Anthony Robinson's there. Tim Ream.
Yeah,
they're keeping the Team America alive.
I'm still not filled with fear. So I guess one of the things though is Klopp does not seem to like early games because he says it disrupts our rhythm. So that may be in Fulham's favor, but I don't see too much else. I guess the crowd will be up for it. Although I did read that they're charging some, like all the tickets are really expensive for this game. So maybe they won't have any of their real fans there. There will be people who are doing day trips.
No, they'll still get their regular. That's against Liverpool opening game of the season. That's one of the reasons that they realize that they can gouge, because people will pay it.
Yeah.
If we were playing against Brentford, I'd probably potentially not, but then I don't think that they'd probably charge those prices.
No, doesn't feel like a Brentford thing. But anyway, there's another reason to want us to win. Price gouges, yes. Okay. Let's quit. So I think we have a sense that, rolling in after Saturday, because I think Sunday doesn't really count, should be in reasonably good shape. Got options whether Darwin Nunez starts or whether he comes off the bench. Feels like we've got options, and we might well play, a more attacking system, depending on how Klopp views Fulham, I think. Again, I think there'll be a bunch of teams that will come up against this season, and I think we'll play a much more attacking formation is my take.
Well, I think anything that he can throw in to try and disrupt what people think we're going to play, I think that this year, if he says he wants to be unpredictable, I think he might do that.
Yeah.
And the great thing about the 5 subs is you can ostensibly, not that you couldn't do it with 3, but you can, bringing on 5 players, you can ostensibly change the entire way that you play.
Yeah. And I think, we talked about this, we touched on this with the Community Shield. Given the players on the bench, even with all those injuries, we're in a pretty good position to be able to change things, whether it was with Nunez or Carvalho or whoever. Keita even. Yes. Okay, so let's one final thing before we kind of wrap this piece up, and then we'll talk a bit about the women's Euros. What anything else catch your eye in the rest of the weekend? Anything you could be looking out for? And the answer might be no, but
just for to Ali to be ready, honestly.
okay.
I'd like to see him back between the sticks. I had a lot of animosity in my heart for Adrian after we got beaten by Atletico Madrid, but the guy just seems like such a genuinely nice, awesome person. Loves what he does. Loves playing for the club. Obviously, well respected in the dressing room. I was made up for him. But having said that, it would still be nice to see Ali back between the pipes, because it does provide us with a different level of confidence in the back.
Actually, I did notice on Saturday, Adrian's passing obviously is not at the level of Alisson's, but he wasn't kicking the ball in the middle of the field like he did in that game against Atletico. He was like trying to pass out, but at an angle, and a couple of times he just went straight out, which is obviously a lot safer than what he did against Atletico.
I think he did. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say he did, and Virgil he did, and Virgil just went at him like.
Oh, he did. He almost scored. Yeah.
Oh, I must have been busy getting my pint refilled.
Dude, my nails grew 5.5 inches as I scraped them across the tabletop.
Oh,
yeah, and I don't want to be negative. I agree with everything that you guys said about him, but it just felt like he could have done better with the goal that City scored. But again, preseason, people make mistakes, but that's just other than that, shank pass or whatever. That was the other thing that
he had both hands on the ball for that. That's a foul. Whether or not he had full possession, you have both hands on the ball. That's usually whistled dead as soon as it's kicked out of your hands.
Yeah, I do think the VAR was so busy with their
offside
lines for offside that they kind of missed the really obvious. It's like, isn't the ball dead once he's got his hand on top of it? Isn't how Schmeichel got a goal ruled out? Like,
it was exactly the same thing with Virgil when he got taken out by Pickford. They were focused on the offside and not him getting nobbled by that T-Rex arm bollocks.
So what I did expect someone to bring this up, but so obviously our game kicks off early. The 5:30 in the UK kickoff on Saturday, I don't know if you've seen this, is Everton, Frank Lampard's Everton against Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea. That could be a really interesting game and could be a complete disaster for somebody.
Yeah, I don't feel like watching that one, to be honest. What one team is just not there, will never get there, and the other team is still trying to figure themselves out. So it's not going to be
sure which is which.
Yes,
it's not going to be quality football. I don't know.
No. It's really more the theater that I'm after.
Well, that's just you said. You want to watch. Who do you want to see fail/succeed more?
Yeah. Well, I mean, wouldn't it be funny if Everton actually did manage to win that? I guess they beat Chelsea last year, right? They took 4 points off Chelsea.
They did beat them, and that's when they stormed the field, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the season.
I don't think it was. No, it wasn't that one. Was it?
Wasn't that one?
Game after?
Yeah, it's easy. Honestly, it's tough. Yeah. It's tough to figure it all out because they seem to do it every time they win now.
Yeah. I know Sean was saying that they'd planned a bus parade or something for the first game, or gonna like greet the coach. It's like it's gonna be a long season trying to do that 19 times if that's what it takes to get the team on board. So I'll casually mention then before we finish part 2 on Sunday, we've got United kicking off against Brighton. That might be interesting. In terms of Brighton probably aren't the ideal team, I would have thought, for a team in flux to be playing, but we'll see.
The only way that gets more interesting is if they actually bring it back a week afterwards for a penalty. That's the only way that gets more interesting than how it ended last year.
Yeah.
Last year or the year before?
The year before, yeah. Game had ended and they brought it back for a penalty for Manchester United, of course. Yeah. No one else is getting that. And then, of course, I think we touched on this. West Ham against City is the later Sunday game. That might be worth looking into. Well, at least until City score, and then we'll turn it off like we usually do. But
yeah, I'll take 15 minutes off of my paint drying paint drying watching to give that a squiz.
Okay.
Friday's match is not bad either. Crystal Palace, Arsenal.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly that might be interesting to see, just in terms of how those two teams have evolved. Yeah.
I'd love interested in seeing what Black Jesus is going to do.
I tell you what, he looked good when I saw him here in Baltimore against Everton, but again, I'll caveat that by saying it was only Everton.
Yeah. And he also looked great against Chelsea, which is another reason to be interested in the Everton-Chelsea match.
Yeah, he had a hat-trick a couple of days ago. I'm just wondering, so this is a quick question to you guys. Is he going to have more goals than last season?
Yes.
This season? Yeah, I think so too.
Well, what perhaps a more interesting question for me would be, is he going to get more goals than Haaland? Because that would be hilarious.
That could act as a great spur for him too. I'll show those bums.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's wrap it up there. We'll obviously be back next week to talk about the easy win. I'm going to regret saying that. I know I am.
You are. I'm coming to your house when it's not as the result is not what we were looking for.
Okay. Well, hopefully Darwin Nunez bites his first hat trick, and then he's what? 10%.
Well, I'll be coming to your house for a different reason.
10% of the way to 30 goals. Okay. I did this last season when Mo was scoring all those goals. Salah's going to get a hat trick today. Salah's going to get a hat trick today. Of course, eventually he shows up at Old Trafford and he gets a hat trick, which was very nice. Okay.
One day he said he would. One day you didn't repeat it.
No, I did. Every game I said to my daughter, it's Salah hat trick today. Anyway, let's leave it there for part 2. We'll be back with part 3 to talk up the Euros. So welcome back to part 3. This is our final installment, I guess, of reviewing the Euros. We'll just touch on the 2 semi-finals, which I think were both really excellent games that we saw last week. England beat Sweden. It was 4-0, but I think the XG was really close in that one. It was something like 2.5 to 1.8, which probably is a better reflection on that match. We'll touch on that. We saw Germany. I thought outplay France, which I was shocked by, and hopefully you've got a contrary view, Haitham, about those games. Lots of things to talk about. I thought Germany looked great, but then obviously yesterday in the final, England beat Germany after extra time. I thought this was one of those games where you would say it was really fine margins. A couple of bounces in a different direction, and Germany have won. Where should we start? Where do you want to start, Haitham?
I'll start with the Germany-France match. So, I think we talked about it in the previous episode where we say, or I say, that I didn't think France would win because no Katoto, no real number 9 or good number 9.
Yeah.
And they did the same thing with the formation, like what they did in the quarterfinals, where they put I think in the second half they put Diami as the number 9, and that's just not her. Although she scored, but I don't think that's her best position. I think she's good with the ball, creating stuff for herself, but she's not a good target, basically. And then Cascarino for some reason did not really have a good game. I think she's one of their. Oh, before then she was one of their shining stars throughout the tournament, and for some reason, I'm sure it had to do with I think the number 6 for Germany, she was just Oberdorf, yeah, she was just sticking to her like a glove.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Germany won tactically. I thought it was well deserved. France could have won. They had the chance to win, but there were like a few chances that they just missed, and not made good use of. And then the other piece of it too is it just felt like deja vu. Why isn't Mateo starting? When I started watching the match. And she did the same thing. She came in and they started playing better actually in the second half. So yeah, I mean, Pop was Pop and she won that game for them. And I'm sure we're going to talk more about her.
Did you think? I honestly, well, at no point did I think France looked like they were going to score. I thought the goal they got came completely out of the blue, and it was very fortunate, right? Because it hit the post and hits the goalie and goes in.
I thought they had better chances in the second half. Unfortunately, the couple that come to mind were by Basha, the left winger. It looked like, instead of making the right pass where someone was open, she just wanted to shoot it from wherever she was.
Yeah,
and I feel like they were just a pass short of actually having a really really good chance. It was a couple of times. And then Renard, bad aim. She had a couple. I thought she had a couple of actually good headers, but again, the aim was not in the right place.
I wonder if she finished the tournament with the most efforts on goal, or
possibly
most efforts, because a lot of them weren't on goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I do think the Germany looked quite good, and one thing I should say is Haitham's prediction was absolutely correct. He said the final would be between England and Germany. Just a word on the Sweden game. I don't know how much of that game that you saw, but I felt like for 25 minutes, like Sweden were the team that was likely to win.
Mhm.
And then it really felt like the Mike Tyson comment about like everyone has a plan to get punched in the mouth. Once England scored, it felt like the confidence just drained away.
Yeah, I think I watched the end of it, but watched the highlights over and over, and it just felt like Sweden. I think within the first minute they had like a big chance that they wasted.
Yeah.
But England, it's just that deep bench. It's amazing. I mean, they bring people in and they're ready to contribute and do contribute actually 99% of the time. But yeah, I agree with you. Once that first goal, I can't remember who scored it, went in.
Mead.
Was it
Yeah,
Mead?
Beth Mead scored, yeah.
Yeah. It felt like, that was basically the dynamo effect, started taking place right then.
Question for you, Daz. I'm sure you've seen the Alicia Russo back heel, because that got more attention than anything. Is it just me, or is that a bit overhyped as like a what they call an iconic moment?
Unusual nature of, isn't it? Like it still goes in. It's like you knock it in with your hat, it's still a goal. But if it's a sombrero, then it looks better than a regular hat. So look, it was nice. It was nice, but at that point, it was like, to your point, Sweden just looked like they'd completely given up. And I think the goalkeeper made a couple, if I remember correctly, made a couple of howlers in that game, and it completely crushed Sweden. But I think that England came out deserved winners in pretty much every contest that they were in. The Spain game surprised me. Are you guys still there?
Yeah. I'll just say one thing about the Russo goal. It was the audacity that was just like wow.
Yeah.
And then the fact that it was a nutmeg too. So I'll give her that was a good goal. I thought it was a good goal. I liked it.
So I had a debate about this. Was it a nutmeg? Don't you have to collect the ball on the other side for it to be a nutmeg?
She did collect it, I thought, or a
teammate
collected it. Yeah, a teammate grabbed it from the net, I believe.
Look, I don't want to sound like a ball bag. It was an impressive. It's an impressive feat, and because like it's you don't see them all that often. And again, like you said, I don't know how she walks with balls that big. just to even try it. But it's, it was.
It
was a lovely goal, and it was a great cap to it's like an absolute rout.
I mean, Bobby, come on, Bobby had a similar goal, but it was like a couple of yards from the goal line, and it was just like everyone was raving about it, like it was the biggest thing ever. So yeah, I got to give her props. It was thoughtful. It was audacious.
Do you think it was intentional?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think she was pissed off that she'd missed the really good chance, actually. But, I mean, I think that's where it came from. It's like, yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was well thought through.
Okay.
I'm not taking that away.
Maybe I'm the curmudgeon. All right. So let's talk then about the final. Maybe we'll touch on some of the coverage. The unbiased English coverage on the game, and how physical those Germans were. But it felt really close, and it felt at many points it felt that Germany was going to win, especially after they'd equalized. What did you? I mean, how did you read the game? I think until England scored the winner, it kind of felt like, well, this is going to penalties and Germany's going to win. Felt like the obvious outcome.
Yeah. Obviously there was a lot of misfortune with Germany, losing Pop, before the game started.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard, I'm like, this game is over. I think I put something in the chat for you guys. And then that was on top of the fact that Bull is, tested positive or whatever. She's basically quarantined, could not play.
Yeah.
So that's like two of their best players, if not their best players. But I thought technically Germany was very sound. I mean the English team. I thought they controlled like the first 15, 20 minutes or whatever. But then tactically or whatever, Germany started, grabbing the ball and keeping it. I thought the scorer, Magol.
Yeah.
I thought she was wonderful. I did not believe it when the coach took her out. I was like, what are you doing? But I've seen her score a couple other goals during the tournament, and she's so smart. The goals that she scores, just her, cuts behind and all of that stuff. It's just wonderful to watch. And the goal, obviously, the way she ran behind the defender, that was great to see. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Germany has won it a gazillion times. I think, when I reflect on it, I think it's good for the game. I just wish it was another team, than England. But I thought it was good for the game. And the extra thought that I had is how this tournament would have been if the US were playing, or were involved in the tournament. If it was like, what if it's something like Copa America, where they actually invite teams from other continents to play? I thought it would have been wonderful, because it's not like the World Cup where you have these teams from all over the place, and not so good teams. But this is like, it seemed like it's when it comes to ratings of teams, most of the highly rated teams were in that tournament. So
nothing never happening. It's hard enough to win without bringing in someone who's going to beat you. Noticing Copa America, they don't invite Germany, right?
Yeah, I think
they invite Qatar.
Yeah.
To answer just to look at your question, I think her name Pop is apt, because she does seem to like to have a pop. She had 7 on shots on goal, and she had 9 off target. So I don't think you can overstate how big of a loss that actually was for them.
Yeah.
Miguel was with 8 on target, 2 off. And I apologize to my Swedish friends for potentially decimating this last name. Blackstenius, is that correct?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, she had 11 on
Yeah.
target and 4 off.
Yeah.
So those are your top 3.
Yeah. Wow.
Third to first.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell how much they were missing pop with their corners, you know, and you know, free kicks or whatever, because there was no threat, period. Even though there was that penalty, you know, shout or whatever. I think it was from a corner, if I'm not mistaken.
It was, and they never showed a replay, did they?
I saw the replay. Yeah. It was.
Sorry, they never showed a replay after they said, "Oh, there's a potential handball." They just showed it at normal time, normal speed. So I wasn't looking for a handball at that point. I'm just wondering who was showing.
Yeah, I watched it. When I watched it, I watched a different feed, and they showed the replay on there.
After they'd said the checking for a handball.
Correct. I can't remember, but I remember seeing it even in slow motion. I don't know if it was right after or it was right after the game was done.
Okay, so by the way, the XG for the England-Germany game was 2.18 to 2.38 for Germany, according to Infogol, which probably reflects, I would say, kind of the balance of the play. And
yeah. What's XG again? Sorry, I'm joking.
XG is not goals, right? It's
extra goals. And so it bears mentioning that they like, according to the BBC, this smashed quite a few different records.
Yeah.
17.4 million viewers on BBC One, another 5.9 off of the streams, the legal streams. Then they had like what 80, almost a little over 87,000 in the stadium. So does it bear mentioning how, like, what this means for the women's game in general? Because I know that like that's kind of a tired and trite argument to have, and
yeah,
people that are encamped in one side of it will never be dragged out of it. But it does suggest that like people are starting to watch.
Yeah. So that actually is a record for any like men's or women's Euros. That crowd. Apparently, it's 8 off the capacity for Wembley. Don't know if that means 8 people didn't show up, but anyway, it's
and no one got naked.
Right.
No,
yeah.
no, it did.
No people singing like ridiculously outdated songs about the Second World War. It was
no one forced their way into the stadium.
Yeah, all very pleasant. What does it mean? Well, I think that's maybe we'll just do a quick one on that before we wrap up. I think I've got my numbers correct. I think the average gate for a WSL Women's Super League game in England is it 2,000? It's somewhere. It's in that range. And for the men's Premier League, the average is something like 27, or is it 37,000? There's a significant difference. I think the biggest test will be because the Super League's clearly starting, because we've seen from all of the pictures of the Liverpool players doing pre-season that the WSL is not that far away. I think that's going to be the big test of what its sort of lasting impact is in England, because I think that's the place where it will have the biggest impact.
I think one of the players in the post-match right afterwards said, like, that was what she alluded to, right? Was you need to come and watch the WSL games or watch the club level games.
Yeah, I think it was Leah Williamson, the captain, that said that. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Haitham? Is this a watershed moment, as to use a cliche, or is this will people kind of go back to their previous habits around club soccer?
I'm not sure, to be honest, because of a couple idiots that we've seen over the past few weeks, and I was saying something negative about the women's game coverage and all of that stuff, and they're tired of it or whatever. And some other guy was saying that why are there I can't remember his name, but he went publicly, he's a lord or something, and why are there
Lord Sugar.
Yeah.
Hey, he's the kind of person we don't retweet, by the way.
So Yeah, until those types of people are actually gone and eradicated from society, I just, I think, people are going to look at the women's game from a different angle, versus just concentrating on the quality. And it's very just, it's a good watch. It's a really good watch. I really, really enjoyed it. Even watching, teams that are not as good as the top teams. It was really enjoyable. And the same is true here in the US, with the NWSL. I don't follow it as much as, the Premier League and all of that stuff, but every now and then, I'll watch a match and I enjoy them. Tactically, they're sound.
Women's Champions League's final was a cracking watch.
It was absolutely.
Yeah.
So to summarize, I'm hopeful, but at the same time, you just, you never know.
Yeah. Feels like there might be a breakthrough, but as I say, I think the proof will be when the WSL season starts and what kind of crowds show up for those games. I do want to finish on, I shared kind of before we started recording a LinkedIn post I saw from some English misogynist, frankly, today, and you'll hopefully, based on our conversation last week, I think you'll find one of the points he made was that the standard of the soccer was barely above non-league men's football, and I was like, what? Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a bit more finesse to this than I don't know. Anyway, he claimed to be a person who went and watched a lot of football. He also went on to basically try and persuade people that the equity, equality weren't really that important, and he got a suitable amount of abuse on LinkedIn, which is usually not the kind of platform where that sort of stuff happens.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to see it.
Linked out, man. Linked out.
Well, what's somewhere? So there was so many funny things, but I'll finish with one. What was so funny was someone pointed out that LinkedIn had actually sponsored the Women's Euros. So they might have a different view to him. And we'll leave it there. Okay. We will be back next week after Liverpool have taken on Fulham, and hopefully I haven't jinxed them. Thank you so much, Haitham. Thank you so much, Daz, for joining me today. I think we will be back next week.
If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with a friend. Follow us at First State Kopites on Twitter. We only tweet and retweet from sources we think are credible. Finally, music is courtesy of Hypnotic. They're a Welsh electro-pop band, and you can find them at https://hyperfollow.com/hypnotic. Hypnotic is HYPENOTIC. Thanks so much to them.